Hello! Welcome to the Joe Morgan Occurrence, episode 15. It's been a little while, but I've sort of started a new job, so it's been a bit of chaotic trying to settle in and replan my life, but it's all good because I'm getting my life back. I can go to the gym now, see the kids more, and I'm trying to find that work-life balance even more, which is lovely. So this is the continuation of my little mini-series I got going on, so they're going to call this one The Provider, Becoming the Man Too Early. So this naturally just sort of follows on from my grief after losing my sister. Because of the loss, it sort of made me step into responsibility quite young. I sort of felt that I became needed, and because I felt that I was needed, that sort of became my identity. So let's go back. 17 years old, lost my sister. Something inside me changed. I just stopped being a boy. I became responsible. I sort of became a man early. And I suppose you could say grief didn't just make me sad, it made me serious. And this is where the sort of shift in my life happened, where I went from being a grieving brother, which, it took me years to get past that, but then when I became a father and a partner, I sort of stepped into the role of the provider, and it sort of made me feel a lot older than my age and pushed me to take life seriously, which sort of put pressure on me to keep step up. And what happened with that then is I stopped having fun in life. Everything was serious. I had to provide. I needed to do this, needed to do that, make sure the kids had everything, my ex-wife had everything. It didn't matter about me in the process. It didn't matter if I had fun. It was about being the provider and trying to protect my family emotionally. But when I look back in hindsight, the sort of protection of my emotions was just me hiding away from them, because I was trying to suppress my own pain to not add to theirs. And this is where my perception of strength came from a young age, was thinking of strength meant carrying everything quietly and not asking for help. So we're going to fast forward now. So where I actually, I became a father and a partner, and I was always, I was never a lazy worker, but I started working harder, trying to find ways to earn more money so I could provide financially, give financial freedom. Well, not a bit more freedom for the kids and my ex to enjoy life. I feel like I became this dependable man who would always show up for work. He'd always show up and just never complaining about it. Within reason. I never went through life without having a little whinge here and there. But I mean, man, that's what we all do. Mother raised a quitter. No, that's wrong. Mother raised a complainer, not a quitter. That's the one. Not a quitter. So this sort of leads into the question that I've thought about along the way. If I wasn't providing, who was I? And when I thought of this question, this is where it really opened me up to who am I as a person. And this is what sort of got me into the mini series, because I noticed there's a pattern in my life where I fitted into a role rather than just being myself. And I think I don't think that's unique to me. I think that's probably a sort of man sort of thing where you just sort of step in a role. Maybe not. Maybe women step into motherhood and that's their identity as well. I don't know. I'm just my perspective. Could be wrong. Could be right. Who knows? Not me. Not right now. Anyway, I'm sure people will tell me anyway. So this is where I tied my self-worth to my role. So I put a lot of pressure on myself and became became in this vicious cycle that for me to be worth anything, it was in the output that I could do in work and etc. You know, productivity became identity. You know, I pushed from warehouse. I was in a warehouse. I was already in like a supervisor position, but then and the job came up to be a manager, and then I took that, and then I was always looking for ways to be productive there because it was part of my identity, and sort of that's all I talked about was work as well. And if it's not fun. Nobody wants to talk about work all the time. You know, there's a big whole world out there, and there's so much life to be lived. There's so many experiences to have. So I don't want to be stuck in a circle of being a provider because it just means you just focus on work. Really, you're doing it for good reasons, but you're just focusing on work and not experiencing life. When I was in this mindset, rest just felt like weakness. So I would work 24/7, and if I stopped, I felt like I wouldn't do anything in my life. Where there was like just bits and bobs around the house, going out to do stuff, you know. It just felt like I couldn't stop, and even when I did stop, I was sort of punishing myself, and it's a really unhealthy habit to have. And then because of that, I felt like emotions were inconvenient, so I just sort of pushing things down and not facing them head on or like communicating, and it led to other difficult parts of my life as well. I put a lot of pressure on myself to be the perfect provider, showing up every day, and unfortunately I fell into the trap of I didn't feel valuable because of who I was. I felt valuable because of what I did, and it just sort of sunk me into a dark hole sometimes because if I had, annual leave and not much planned, I sort of it sort of funneled any self worth I had left at that point because I felt like I was just stopping and giving up, and it wasn't giving up. I was having a rest. We all need rest and recuperation. Well, life's stressful, work stressful, kids are stressful. You need rest. You need a break, and you shouldn't feel guilty for it. And something I've learned now is just rest is good. Taking a quiet moment, even if it's a couple of hours to yourself, just doom scrolling or just watching some series. It's just good for you. It's good for your mental health as long as it's not consuming you. Everything in mediation, I suppose. So this leads into when I finally had the realization that I was just a provider, and this was probably 4 years would be my ex. So I was 4 years of being a father at that point, and I just sort of realised that I wasn't living life. I was permanently exhausted. I was just working, coming home, making sure the kids are provided for, doing bits and bobs, staying up late then because my mind wouldn't switch off, and then waking up early, and it was just this vicious cycle, and I could never catch up. It's what led into another part of my identity crisis. I didn't actually know who I was. If I went providing, who was I? Who? What was I? And in a way, I sort of felt well, in a way, it was. If I weren't providing, I felt like I just fell back into the grieving brother, and just that was my identity as well. So it was very hard for me to break out of these sort of mindsets and like be me, because from being 17, lose my sister, and then I was 23, 24, about that sort of age. So it's almost 7 years, but I spent almost 7 years just being a grieving brother, and then I threw myself into being the provider. Being needed in my mind wasn't the same as being known. So if I wasn't needed, nobody knew what was going on. Uh, Being a provider is a good thing. It was a privileged position to be that, but when it was my only identity, it became dangerous. Like, that's who I was. I was just the provider. And if I weren't the provider, I was a grieving brother. So I struggled for years and years of trying to figure out who I am. Probably much more than people who know me quite well realised, because I never let people in on what was going on in my head, really, over those years, and give little glimpses here and there where my body had just sort of told me at inconvenient times that I was done. I needed a rest. So I think this is a bit of a shorter episode today, but I'm sort of out of whack with it as well because it's been so long since I've done the last one. The next one shouldn't be so long coming out. It was just because I changed jobs. I had to go up to Steaton for training, and I got to go back eventually. But it was just trying to settle in, get my feet on the ground into like my new lifestyle, because I'm home every night now, and it's just get to go to the gym, get to see the kids more. It's what I wanted for the last 2 years, is to just be home, be present, see the kids more, and have life for myself. Because for 6 years really, in my old job, I didn't have it. That I had work away Monday to Friday, be home Friday night, and then it's just time with the kids and the ex-partner. So it was just rinse and repeat. And we all know weekends aren't much time, but when you're doing 1,500 miles a week, 50 or 70 hours a week, it's just not enough. You need more. You need more time to yourself. And every time you have annual leave, you start to feel a bit more human. But then you back into the grind, and then away you go. So I'll end the episode there. I hope you're all good. Thanks for listening. This is the Joe Moment Occurs. See you again.